Welcome back to the privacy effort. Usually when we think about a global crisis, it's, something tangible. Like you can see a storm on the radar, a traffic jam stretching for miles. There are warning signs. You can physically see the disruption happening. We're totally conditioned to look for those physical indicators of danger. But the most severe threats we face today operate entirely out of sight. They scale at speeds that physical disasters just can't match. Which brings us to basically a silent alarm that is currently going off in 3.5 billion homes and offices simultaneously. And almost no one hears it. It's terrifying, honestly. Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. My mission today is critical. We are diving into a massive stack of urgent cybersecurity advisories, threat intelligence reports, and federal mandates to decode an unfolding digital crisis. And most importantly, I'm going to teach you exactly how to protect yourself right now. Because the stakes detailed in my collected material are astronomically high. We're looking at two actively exploited high-severity flaws. These are known as zero-day vulnerabilities. And they are currently targeting Google Chrome and its underlying architecture. 3.5 billion users worldwide, nearly half the human population, actively in the crosshairs right now. And it's not just Chrome. It impacts Microsoft Edge, Brave, Opera, and even everyday apps you use. The Severity is wise. CIS, America's Cyber Defense Agency, escalated this immediately. They added these to their known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, the key. And for federal agencies, this triggers a mandate that literally legally forces them to patch their systems immediately. And just to underscore the urgency, these attacks carry a CDSS severity score of 8.8 out of 10. They are happening in the wild today. This is a production emergency. So to really understand what this looks like on the ground, let's walk through a specific scenario from the threat reports. Let's talk about Alex, the typical end user who gets caught right in the middle of a zero-day event. So Alex is an office manager. He spends practically his whole day jumping between web browsers and apps like Slack, coordinating with his team. Pretty standard workflow for most of us. So one Tuesday morning, he gets a link to a seemingly harmless industry news article. He clicks it, he reads it, and goes right back to his spreadsheet. And notice what he didn't do there. He doesn't download a file. He doesn't click install on some sketchy pop-up. Simply visiting the page triggers what the reports call a crafted HTML page attack. It is a completely invisible invitation, and that stealthy nature is exactly what keeps security professionals up at night. For decades, the golden rule of cybersecurity training has been, don't download shady attachments. Don't click bizarre executable files. But here, the victim didn't make a traditional mistake. The mere act of the browser rendering the text and images on the web page is the weapon. So while Alex is just reading this article, the attacker silently gains a beachhead on his computer. And from that foothold, they steal saved login tokens to the company cloud. And then comes the knockout punch. They deploy ransomware, completely locking Alex out of all his files. And this all happens in milliseconds. Once they break out of the browser's safety boundaries, they have the keys to the underlying operating system. But the most suspenseful part of this whole scenario is what happened earlier that morning. The missed warning. Alex actually saw a tiny update icon glowing in the top corner of his browser. It was sitting right there. But he was busy. He had 20 tabs open for a project, didn't want to lose his workflow, so he just ignored it. Which is so common. And by the end of that day, his IT department had to lock his account just to save the company network. The psychology of ignoring software updates. Which brings us to the burning question. So how did they fall for it? Why do smart people ignore the very thing meant to save them? Well, it really comes down to human psychology and just the friction inherent in modern software design. It's not about Alex being gullible. In behavioral science, we look at this phenomenon called update fatigue. Think about it. We are relentlessly bombarded with software updates. Constantly. Phones, smart TVs, laptops. After a while, those alerts just become background noise. It's so relatable. It's like ignoring the check engine light on your dashboard because you're already 10 minutes late for a meeting. You know it's bad, But you tell yourself, well, the car is running fine right now. It can wait until Friday. The car is still driving. So the abstract threat of engine failure just doesn't feel real compared to the immediate stress of being late. Totally. And combined with that fatigue is the illusion of safety. We inherently trust harmless-looking news articles. Plus, restarting a browser breaks your flow. You lose your train of thought. You have to wait for the tabs to reload. You have to log back into all your web apps. It's a huge pain. In the modern workplace, that feels like a massive disruption. We prioritize immediate productivity over invisible security. And I think we really have to validate that feeling. It is completely understandable why smart, busy people delay these updates. Taking your tools offline feels like a penalty. But the implications here are massive. I mean, if simply rendering text and images can compromise the operating system, that's wild. But I have to play the skeptic for a second here. Just looking at a web page can hack my computer. How does that actually work? It sounds like magic, right? But to understand the mechanics, you have to look at how a modern browser builds the page you see. They aren't just simple document viewers anymore. They're basically running web apps. They are essentially highly complex operating systems running on top of your actual operating system. And to protect your computer, browsers use a mechanism called a sandbox, like a walled garden, where web code is supposed to run safely without being able to touch, the rest of my hard drive or my sensitive files. The sandbox quarantines untrusted code. But the source material outlines two specific flaws that work together to dismantle that quarantine. Let's look at the first vulnerability, CVE 202-63910. This is the script hijack, and it targets something called the V8 engine, their JavaScript engine. So we're talking about the system that makes websites interactive, like live chat boxes, animated menus, that kind of thing. V8 is Chromium's high-performance engine for executing JavaScript. And because modern websites are so heavy, V8 uses incredibly complex logic to run scripts fast. Does it make sense to you now? But the PET reports describe a logic error within V8. They call it an inappropriate implementation. Basically, the internal logic the engine uses to process certain scripts is flawed. When it processes a specific malicious JavaScript, this error gets triggered. Okay, let's unpack this. So if there's a logic error in how V8 processes the script, does that mean the attacker is bypassing the normal memory safeguards within the engine? The answer is yes. They leverage that logic error to confuse the engine, which ultimately lets them execute their own arbitrary malicious code inside the browser's sandbox. So they've smuggled their weapon past the first layer of defense, but they are still trapped inside that walled garden. So they're inside the browser, but they can't touch the rest of the computer yet. Which brings us to the second flaw, CVE 202-63909, the graphics glitch. So underneath Chromium is a 2D graphics library called Skia. Skia is responsible for drawing the shapes, the text, every pixel you visually see on your screen, the actual rendering part. When the browser encounters a specially crafted, malformed image on this malicious web page, Skia tries to render it. But the image is mathematically designed to trick Skia into performing an out-of-bounds write. That means the web page is forcing the Skia engine to write data into a part of the computer's memory that it absolutely shouldn't be allowed to touch. It's overshooting its designated memory buffer. It's almost like, imagine someone spilling ink across a highly sensitive ledger. It overwrites critical instructions that the computer relies on to function, causing severe memory corruption. The computer's memory relies on strict boundaries. By intentionally spilling that ink outside the designated buffer, the attacker creates a physical loophole in the software's architecture. Man, as you can see, this chain reaction is just fascinating. The V8 logic error lets the attacker craft a malicious payload inside the browser's memory. And then the Skia out-of-bounds write acts as the vehicle to punch a hole through the sandbox wall, letting that payload leak into the underlying OS. And once they escape the browser sandbox, they aren't just a guest anymore. They have root access to the foundation. That is the devastating reality of a zero-day exploit chain. That's terrifying. Two complex flaws stitched together. One creates the payload, the other delivers it. That's how they get the beachhead we saw in Alex's story. And all of this happens in the background, in a fraction of a second, just by loading a web page. That level of sophistication really underscores why CISA is treating this as a production emergency. The attack surface is massive. So let's shift gears. How do we actually fight back against this? Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the defense against these incredibly complex attacks is surprisingly straightforward. There are 3 distinct practical rules of thumb. All right, let's start with rule number 1, restart to protect. We talked about update fatigue and how people will sometimes click download but leave the browser open. But the recommendation is super clear. It is not enough to just let the update download in the background, because the browser is still actively running the old vulnerable code in your computer's RAM. The security patch, which by the way is version 146.0.6, 680.0.75, or 7.6, depending on your OS, that patch only activates once the browser process is completely terminated and restarted. If your tabs are open, the vulnerable versions of V8 and Skia are still active. You have to reboot to apply the armor, so closing the compromised tab doesn't save you. You must fully restart. Which leads perfectly into rule number 2, which honestly was the most surprising part to me. Check your hidden browsers. So if Chromium is the underlying engine for all these different interfaces, we aren't just talking about Google Chrome. I'm looking at apps like Slack and Discord right now. Do those need to be rebooted too? They absolutely do. This is a Chromium problem, not just a Google problem. Browsers like Edge, Brave, Opera, they all share these vulnerable components. But it goes way deeper. Many modern desktop apps are built using a framework called Electron. And Electron basically takes a Chromium browser window and wraps it up to look and function like a native desktop app. So developers can write the code once and deploy it across Windows, Mac, Linux. It's highly efficient. But it means that apps you use every day, Slack, Discord, PDF viewers, all have a hidden Chromium engine running under the hood. If the vendor hasn't updated that embedded engine, that app is vulnerable to the exact same HTML attacks. You need to check for updates on all your productivity apps and restart them too. That is such a critical insight. Most people never think of their team chat app as a web browser. Rule 3. Isolate your sites. I saw site isolation mentioned in the enterprise recommendations. It means the browser is basically spinning up a virtual mini container for every single tab. That is precisely how it functions. Site isolation forces the browser to dedicate a separate, isolated computer process for every single website you visit. So my banking session is physically walled off from that random news article Alex clicked. They run in completely different memory spaces. It makes it significantly harder for an attacker who compromises one tab using that Skia glitch to leap over and steal data from another tab. You can usually verify this is enabled in the browser's advanced security settings. So keeping the contaminated tab quarantined in its own process makes perfect sense. So our 3 strategies are restart to protect, check your hidden browsers, and isolate your sites. But looking at the CISA mandates, this clearly extends way beyond just personal IT hygiene. The community angle here is paramount. When Alex's computer was infected because he delayed a restart, the attacker didn't just stay on his local hard drive. They used his machine as a bridge. To move laterally through the entire corporate network, we operate within a highly connected digital ecosystem. A single compromised browser on a home network can be the catalyst for a massive corporate supply chain breach. And bringing it even closer to home, think about a shared family computer in the living room. One person ignores the update because they're watching a video stream. An hour later, someone else sits down to check their bank account, and then a teenager logs in to submit a school project. That single outdated instance of Chrome puts everyone's banking, school, and work credentials at risk. Securing your browser is fundamentally a collective responsibility. By patching your own devices, you are actively severing a potential link in an attacker's chain. We often refer to this concept as digital herd immunity. That framing completely changes the narrative around update fatigue. You aren't just doing tedious administrative chores. You are standing guard for everyone connected to you. So for everyone watching right now, I'm bestowing a new identity upon you. You are no longer just a passive user navigating the web. You are now the guardian of the network. It's an empowering title, and it carries a very real responsibility given the severity of the 0 days I've unpacked today. And as the guardian of the network, I have a specific concrete action for you to take today. As soon as this video concludes, go to your browser menu, usually found by clicking those 3 little dots in the top right corner. Click Help, then click About. Super simple. That page will show you your current version, and automatically check for patches. Verify that you are on version 146.0.76, 8.0.75, or 76. If an update downloads, do not wait. Hit that restart button immediately. It's a 30-second action that neutralizes an 8.8 severity threat. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. Today we've focused heavily on laptops, desktops, and phones. But think about all the smart devices, kiosks, and household appliances you interact with daily. Think about the smart fridge in your kitchen with the digital screen, or the point-of-sale system at your local coffee shop. The Internet of Things. Many of those physical devices have hidden, embedded web browsers powering their displays. They're running older versions of Chromium or the Skia graphics library under the surface. How often do those embedded systems get updated? Rarely, if ever. As the architecture of the web embeds itself into literally everything we own, the very definition of a browser update is about to change forever. We're rapidly approaching a future where we might need to patch our kitchen appliances just to stop a network-wide ransomware attack. The attack surface is bleeding out of our screens and into the physical world. It's a sobering realization, a silent alarm going off, not just on our desks, but in our living rooms, our kitchens, and our public spaces. Thank you so much for diving deep with me today. You now understand the hidden mechanics of the threat, the psychology of why we ignore it, and the stakes of inaction. Now go be the guardian of your network. Check your hidden apps, hit that restart button, and stay curious.
That wraps up today's discussion. Thanks for watching and tuning in. If you're curious to dive deeper into this topic, make sure to visit our website. The link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.